Good morning, Matt Waldman. That's who he is. Look, I got the name out first. I'm Bob Harris. Hi, everybody. It's Feel It or Fuck It. We're damn glad to have you here. As you can see, Mr. Waldman has resting RSP face right now, meaning he's close to the end of the rookie scouting portfolio. You can go get it now. MattWaldman.com is the website. Order it. If you don't have this thing, Matt, tell them what they're going to get.
You're going to get about 162 to 165 players this year that I've scouted, detailed scouting profiles, rankings, overviews of each position with some draft history, trends of where I think the positions are going. You're going to get tier breakdowns. You're going to get video examples, links to video examples that I've been accumulating all year of techniques and concepts and athletic skills that inform these scouting reports. Everything is documented in a way where you can learn. Really, you could use this process to scout players yourself if you wanted to take the time, but you could see how all that works. And it's done in an entertaining fashion. You're going to get probably over 900 pages of content that is bookmarked in a PDF that's downloadable, and you can kind of choose your own adventure with it, or you could read it straight through. It's evergreen content for at least the next, I would say, 3 to 5 years in terms of what you can use for fantasy. And it's one of the most looked at publications for cross-referencing purposes by NFL people who visit colleges when they're trying to evaluate players. That's according to guys like Alex Brown, who is a recruiting manager or director over at Ole Miss, and he visits with all these guys and was had stops at Rice and Houston and SMU, where he's well known in this space, and he knows that the Beast, Dane Brugler's Beast, and this Godzilla-like substance, we could call the Beast King Kong, and we could call this one Godzilla. I don't know who won, so don't think there's any implications about that, But I do know that Godzilla sometimes looks at the Beast and says, that's cute. That's cute.
Let me just add, as a fantasy investor, it's invaluable for me as well. I'm watching NFL football during the college football season. I have no idea who these guys are. No better way for me to catch up and get up to speed, especially before the draft. Just getting familiar with all the players and their skill sets. But after the draft, revisiting to see where the landing spots are. Also, I get some help with that with the post-draft rookie scouting portfolio. You'll want that as well. As for sitting down and reading it all the way through, good luck, people. Pack a lunch. It is is voluminous.
It's become a work holiday for a lot of people. They say, I'm reading the RSP, I took the day off, or I decided that this is a me day, as if you're a husband and father, or if you're just one of those people that says, you know what, I'm taking a paid vacation at my office and there's no work getting done here today. If you're one of those people, well, I don't condone that, but I do appreciate you supporting the work.
I'm gonna be on vacation next week for the April 1st release date. I'm usually not, and I usually spend the first night after release with that. Mrs. Diehard has come to this realization and is okay with it, sharing me with Matt Waldman at that particular point in time. I don't think I'm going to try that on the vacation, though. I think I'll wait till I get back.
I think that's
I would like to be healthy.
Smart plan.
Let's give a couple of them away real quick.
Yeah, because we're about 2-3 weeks overdue, because I got so many responses over the contest of who was the underrated receiver, most underrated receiver on my board, and I gave away some hints, and I got a lot of great responses, and I'm sorry I couldn't get back to anybody's emails during that time, but I was knee deep in a wide receiver chapter. I'm just lucky I slept some. So the winners are Kevin McPartland and Christian Kulo for guessing Kelly Kyrie, the wide receiver at Mississippi State. Kelly Kyrie was the answer. And we're going to give away another couple of RSPs this week, and hopefully I'll be able to get back to you next week with who the winner is, since I should be done by then. So we'll have a question at the end to give away a couple more.
Let's just kick it off with a couple, big picture rookie issues, which I think people are interested in. I think the wide perception is, or at least, what you hear from the people out there doing all this stuff. It's a great fantasy class for running backs. Feel it or fuck it, Matt.
I would say the potential is there, but overall I'd say fuck it, because the 2017 class is the one they're getting compared to as an all-timer, and that 2017 class had 10 running backs. We're talking about running backs, right? Did I just hear that wrong? Okay, good.
You did.
So I'm still kind of waking up. 10 running back, even though I walked 2 miles in the woods just about an hour ago. But
you were drugged through the woods by Hugo. Let's be fair.
That's true. I was drugged through the woods by Hugo. But yeah, there were 10 receivers in 2017, running backs in the 2017 class that had multiple years of starter production. I mean, you're looking at this low, and then you add Austin Eckler to the mix, who was undrafted. So that's a pretty hefty group. I would say a good group is probably anything like maybe 4 to 5 running backs. So that 2017 kind of doubled that with McCaffrey and Fournette and Alvin Kamara, and I mean the list is pretty strong. Aaron Jones, as I mentioned. So this class, I think we could see 4 to 6 guys end up being that good, maybe even 7, and that could be a very good class. But I don't think we're going to see 10 to 11 backs have multiple years of strong starter skills. And a lot of it, too, is about draft capital, Bob. I mean, we got to understand that this is last year, if you looked at last year's class, and I know it wasn't as good, but most of the backs were drafted after the 4th round. And I think that when you look at the demand for running backs in the NFL, it's pretty low. Now, it can change to be a critical demand at any time due to the high rates of injury and players just fading out because of age and things like that. But on the surface, teams have figured out I don't need to draft a 1st or 2nd or 3rd round guy when I can let these guys compete and there's enough talent there. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see like the vast majority of the running backs drafted in the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds of this draft.
Day three players. Yeah. And people need to remember, running backs make great special teams players, right? And so a lot of these day 3 guys, it's going to depend on opportunity. Like all these guys could play. Like I'm sure Dylan Lobby and Kamani Vidal are good football players. Yeah. Until they get an opportunity and make good on it, we shouldn't get over enthusiastic about guys drafted on day 3. I think
the draft capital is a big deal. Right. And on top of that too is in this draft, you could see a scenario where a team goes, you know what? Let's bank like the Green Bay Packers did in 2017 and draft Jamal Williams in like the 5th round and draft Aaron Jones in the 6th round.
Right.
And let them play it out. Let's figure out what we got, or we get a 1-2 punch. And you might see something like Damian Martinez drafted in the 5th round. Then they turn around and get Dylan Sampson in the 6th round. It could be something like that. And these are 2 players that have very strong rankings in the RSP this year.
Right.
But from a draft capital standpoint, it just may not work that way. So running back is one of those classes that people are going to be drafting a lot of them, but it's only because maybe the other classes don't stack up as strong either. And I would say there's some strategies you're going to want to take here. And part of that is if you're 1 or 2 running backs away, it doesn't matter to you. Just load up on them this year. Right. There's some talent. Hopefully you hit on 1 or 2 of them and you're contending. But if you're starting from bare bones, this wide receiver class, I mean, usually I would say draft wide receivers. This time, maybe there's a couple of strategies you might want to take. One of them might be trade back to the next year, trade back and get more picks, into, 2026 and 2027, not due to the quality of the class, but just due to the fact that you're going to have more picks at a higher round if you do it right. And if there's good talent there, you can leverage that. If there isn't, you kick the can down the road.
Right. And I just want to say, when it comes to opportunities, I mean, those are evolving situations. A year ago, we wouldn't have been having this conversation about Isaac Rendo that we're having this year due to the changing circumstances. Oh, look, Jordan Mason's gone. Christian McCaffrey's, taking a year off basically due to injuries, and he's getting older. Well, will he be viable? So the opportunities change, and it's the players who are in position and ready to take advantage of those opportunities make as much difference. So in Dynasty, hell yeah, shoot your shot, kids, but have reasonable expectations. You mentioned the wide receivers. The general perception is this is a bad class for fantasy wide receivers. Feel that or fuck it.
if you judge it by the criteria that this is that you need to have at least 4 or 5 prospects who are primary wide receivers, guys that who are gonna play win against man-to-man coverage with timing routes on 3rd and 15 and a pivotal part of the game where everyone in the stadium knows the ball's going toward being targeted to that receiver, then yeah, this class is a bad one because there's not many of those guys, if any of those guys, available. But if you're looking for a bunch of guys who could be wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, and have long careers doing that, then I'd say this is a pretty good class. There's a pretty good chance that that's going to be available to you. So, if you're looking at drafting with this group, I would say that there are guys maybe that you can get that after the first 5 guys are worth targeting, and probably worth targeting in the first round and a half, depending on whether you. And so if you from a draft capital standpoint, you might find that we may find out that the wide receivers have a little more draft capital than some of these running backs, and while they aren't Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers, they might still give you the opportunity to be a mid-range T. Higgins, Mike Williams, Chris Godwin type of players. Early career Chris Godwin.
Yeah. Well, last year, how about last year, Chris Godwin, when he was wide receiver 2 over the first 7 games? Any of those floating around?
Yeah, well, yes, that could possibly happen with a good fit. But that's the thing is like Godwin's probably underrated in that respect. So maybe I shouldn't have used him as an example. But like a lot of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3s. So at that range of the draft, if you're not going to trade back, maybe you just continue stockpiling receivers if you're a growing dynasty team. And even though these guys aren't going to pay off as wide receiver 1s, you may still get enough depth that you can stockpile and trade for a running back that you want because you're going to still be building value at one position. So it may not be a great class, but I still think it's going to derive some value for smart fantasy GMs.
You invoked the name of one of the receiving altars at which I worship on the regular, Malik Nabers. We saw Jameis Winston sign with the New York Giants. They might not be done yet. They could still, there's talk they're still interested in Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers still available. They may draft somebody. But when Jameis Winston is the starter, Malik Nabers is a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. Feel it or fuck it.
For fun, I'm going to say feel it, just because, it's going to be bombs away. If you watch what Winston did with Michael Thomas back in New Orleans, he just force-fed the ball to Thomas and knew that Thomas could go up and get it, and Thomas looked great before he got hurt. I think you could see the same thing with Winston and Nabers. Winston's highs are better than Daniel Jones's highs. His lows are probably just as bad as Daniel Jones's lows, or worse. But I like the aggression, and Malik Nabers is going to appreciate it too.
Jerry Jeudy last year, 8 games with Jameis Winston, was wide receiver 5.
Yeah.
Thinking I'm underestimating Malik Nabers if Jerry Jeudy can hit wide receiver 5.
Could we say that there will be 5 spots worth of fantasy points between Malik Nabers and the number 2 receiver in the league?
So I do think it's interesting because you mentioned the targets. Jeudy got like 8 targets a game. There were games where he got up to 14. The big game against Denver, everyone can remember, where he set career highs, and so did Jameis Winston, by the way. But the targeting was heavy. I think he ended up averaging almost 9 targets a game. If Jerry Judy's averaging 9, Malik Nabers is getting
18,
10, 12. You're right. I was trying to be conservative, and I'm glad you helped me out there. This one.
I would have thought about the Browns, but I blocked out last season. I don't even remember what happened to them. I watched so few games of the Browns last year. So anyway,
Jameis Winston can hold a starting job for half the team's games. Feel it or fuck it.
I feel it. But
under the right circumstances.
Right circumstances, I definitely feel it. And I think that the question is, again, are they going to get somebody else? If they draft somebody, I absolutely feel that he can do half the games, or more than half.
And I think we're on the same page here. Malik Nabers, will finish in the top 5 regardless of the quarterback. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm gonna say fuck it, but just barely, just because I think that teams kind of wake up and go, okay, how do we adjust to this guy?
I think that's the
and
problem.
and that's probably going to be the big thing. And then with Winston, the ups and downs there, he's going to get a lot of targets. He's going to be, I say, if you said inside the top 10, I'd say absolutely feel it without a doubt. Top 5, maybe I'm going to be a little conservative. But honestly, if you're going to ask me, if you could ask me that question, then you'd say, Matt, will you draft Malik Nabers inside the top 5 overall? And I'd say, fuck yes, I will, even though I'm trying to, downplay the
right now you're going to get him at pick number 10 on Underdog, so he's going as wide receiver. I want to say 7. I want to say my wide receiver 8.
I'd take that all day.
Right, I have been taking a lot of that. When I am in position, Brian Thomas Jr. going just ahead of him, Drake London going just after AJ Brown, going a couple picks after, making it often into the second round, which I find delightful. I know the volume falls off when Saquon Barkley's running the ball up, but you'll still get some big games out of Mr. A.J. Brown. All right, so I mentioned a couple quarterbacks that are currently unemployed. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. Feel one, fuck one.
We need Bloom on this show. But he'd say fuck them both, and I don't care. I'm going to say,
let's throw in that I'm starting to sense a little bit of like Steeler fan, like, yeah, let's go with Aaron Rodgers. This is like better than what we've had for a while.
I'd say this. I think if you're just going to play the numbers, yes, I'm feeling Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. But I would say the caveat is that I wouldn't be shocked if Aaron Rodgers doesn't know what DK Metcalf is, the way Wilson knows what DK Metcalf is and isn't, and Aaron Rodgers decides to say, fuck you, DK Metcalf, after Metcalf doesn't show up as being really a wide receiver 1 in the caliber that Aaron Rodgers is expecting, and then throws one of those diva hissy fits that people talk about. Whereas with Russ, played with Metcalf all these years, very familiar with him, and also, so I think that could work out reasonably well if the Steelers can agree to play nice with their quarterback and let him make adjustments. Because as DK Metcalf outlined apparently recently, he and Tyler Lockett, when they were with Pete Carroll, used to write suggestions and do scouting reports on the opposition that they were facing in the coming weeks, and they would give them to the offensive coordinators, and they would usually be able to work out play calls that would be to their advantage based on what the defensive backs were doing. According to Metcalf, he and Lockett did that the first few weeks with Ryan Grubb, and they said, yep, thanks a lot, or really no response really whatsoever, I think was what he said. And then they'd show up on Sunday and they'd get into a look that he said, oh, this is advantageous. And he said, all we're running is hitch routes. And he said, after a while, we just gave up because we saw that they didn't want our feedback. They didn't care. And they weren't even focused on what they could do to make things even better. And they just shut down the effort of trying to do something that the team didn't welcome. I'm worried that if Russell Wilson, maybe he's the one that leaked it, was that I was told to stop veering from the script. You might not like that about Russ, or you hear those types of things, but at least Russ and DK know how to work with each other. I'm afraid Aaron Rodgers might go, this isn't a wide receiver 1, and then kind of shut him out and be an ass to him, and then the whole thing falls apart. Yeah, he's going to turn to George Pickens. I mean, this whole thing could be funny, but like from a standpoint of ceiling, I agree, Aaron Rodgers. From the standpoint of like a higher floor, I would probably still say Russell Wilson's in the mix if these guys can play nice to each other, because a lot of these players and coaches all backdoor each other in terms of the way that they do, the way that they communicate, and the way they try and solve problems, which is just not healthy. But Wilson seems to be getting the rep for that. We'll see. I guess Rodgers. I guess I agree with folks. It's tough though.
I mean, you feel like if they thought Russell Wilson was a guy who could take them somewhere, they have some background on him, they have some experience with him, that he would already be back there, and maybe they'll all rue the day they let Justin Fields take off to New York. Remember, people, through 6 games, Justin Fields was fantasy quarterback 6 when he got yanked in favor of Russell Wilson.
What was the Steelers' record though?
It wasn't good. I don't care.
Yeah, see, there we go.
I don't care.
But you gotta care so they can stay on the field. That's the problem.
Let's just put it this way. I don't think it was glorious with Russell Wilson. He came out and they won a little at first, but the offense got pretty stale.
They did get to the playoffs, though.
They did. Thanks, defense. The Ravens paid Mark Andrews a $4 million roster bonus. Makes it seem likely he will be there. His current ADP and underdog best balls is tight end 6. Feel that or fuck it?
I feel it. I think I'd take him around that time. Maybe feel a little risky for some people given the optics of what happened at the end of the season and also at the beginning. But I think that we saw that this guy can still play, and I think that we're going to see a good rebound year.
I would agree with that. And Isaiah likely going from say into the double-digit rounds, and tight ends a barren wasteland for the most part. So get a piece that's capable of scoring touchdowns. I'm with you. Brandin Cooks signed on with the New Orleans Saints, where he'll join Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. And in the receiving core, are his days, Cooks as a viable fantasy producer, are they in the rearview mirror now? Feel it or fuck
it? With another quarterback, I would say feel it, but I'm not sure with David with Cold Carr. Even though Brooks is now right back where he started from. I feel like
calling him his brother is like the ultimate disrespect by you.
It's Daniel Jones all over again.
I know,
but it's kind of that thing.
They look very similar. I'm on board.
All I will say is
the other sends his receivers to the according to the brothers of said receivers.
If you believe in epigenetics, then you don't want these guys to have sons trying to go up and play quarterback, because their pocket feel will probably wind up being really bad. It will get that those genes will get activated. But I would say with Cooks, I mean, there's still a chance. I would take him as a late round player that he's going to be, and know that it's low risk. So why not? But to go from to be in New Orleans, it's gonna with Carr. I have my concerns.
Yeah. Chris Olave is currently going as wide receiver 31. Rashid Shaheed going as wide receiver 51. Feel one, fuck one.
I still think Olave at wide receiver 31 is low, but I know that he's been around that range or lower. So I still believe in Olave. But I would have to imagine, too, at wide receiver 31, what round is that probably? Is that 7th or 8th round probably?
I want to say it's like right around. Let me get a quick read on that, Matt Waldman. I should have had that prepared as a glorious show host that I am.
I mean, while you're looking, I mean,
it's round 5.
Round 5? I would probably go with Rashid Shaheed then. Just from the fact that as talented as Olave is, if Olave had a quarterback that I believed in, he would be no later than a 3rd round pick, and I'd feel thrilled to have him in the 3rd round. But I think for right now, I'd rather have Shaheed, knowing that I'm not counting on him as a starter, but I could get starter value out of that.
Yeah, that's round, like the tail end of round 8 for Shaheed. And I do think it's interesting that there's a player going after him, wide receiver 53. His name is Michael Pittman Jr. Feel it or fuck it at wide receiver 53.
Oh, feel that. Absolutely taking that. I mean, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, and I think it's going to be Richardson. I think Michael Pittman will have a better year. He played with a back injury last year. He shouldn't have even been playing. He'll probably be feeling better, and I think that this offense will be better overall, or it'll be more conducive for fantasy play. So Pittman at least had an excuse last year. None of these other guys I don't know about.
If you weren't paying attention last year, or you kind of need a refresher, there was a point where they thought he was going on IR fairly early on. because of the broken bones in his back. I wonder if they were the transverse process fractures or something very painful. Maybe not, but whatever it was, the talk was he was going on IR, and then he did not, and then he continued playing all year, and good on him.
He could barely reach up and catch balls
right.
sometimes,
So I'm with you. So I mentioned Olave in that wide receiver 3 range, wide receiver 31. There are a handful of receivers in there that I think are probably good values. One that I'm not sure about, Odunze going as wide receiver 26. Feel it or fuck it.
I would say if you're gonna play Bob Harris fantasy football, I would say fuck it, because it's just not quite proven yet, and you got a new offense. And then you also have Caleb in his second year. But then again, if you're playing Bob Harris football, you might also look and go, oh, you know what? They've got a good offensive line. They finally have an offensive coordinator, and they got rid of Keenan Allen. And Odunze is going to be counted on more. That might be right at the value you want to get Odunze. He's right there.
I think this depends on how you're building your roster. If you've gone early, you have some real guys that you feel really confident in, and they're high volume plays. If you get the early round Justin Jefferson or something like that, and you're building out a little later, and he's like your second or third receiver in those circumstances. If you go right receiver heavy early, I think Odunze's great. There are a couple other guys that are going after him. Let me throw those in for context here. Courtland Sutton going at wide receiver 30. Feel it or fuck it. Guy finishes a wide receiver 1 last year. I want to say right around 12.
Yeah, I'm feeling it as much as I say fuck the Broncos and fuck Courtland Sutton's hands techniques. But I would say, yeah, he played well, and he's in a good offense. And, what he did last year, he can build upon. I mean, he was certainly a talented player coming out in the draft. Just needed to get his act together technique-wise, and it's good enough. So, good. Yeah, take
Me
it.
And Sean Payton and Bo we trust. Come on, Bo Nix. Carry it over another year. And then a guy we talked about earlier, I feel like this is going to be adjusted. Just like Justin Fields going at quarterback 20-something is going to adjust at some point here now that he has a home. I feel like Chris Godwin, now that we have some certainty, he's going as wide receiver 33. I'm buying all the shares I can at this point. Feel it or fuck it that he's going to sit at wide receiver 33.
Oh, I'm feeling that and taking that all day long to get him at wide receiver 30. I mean, listen.
He's going to go up. How high will he go up? How high is he going to go up?
To me, if you watch football, Chris Godwin should be no lower than wide receiver 13. Right. But he's probably, I think he'll go up 10 to 12 spots.
Multiple levels of uncertainty here surrounding this. Until recently, we didn't know for sure he was going to be a Buccaneer, but if you thought, wow, he's not a Buccaneer, he's going to be the lead piece for somebody, whether it's the Patriots, who made apparently a big offer for him. And then there's the ankle, which was dislocated, and the last time people saw him, it was facing the way it shouldn't face. And so maybe that's still on their minds. We'll see as it gets closer. I'm guessing he will rise significantly, maybe pushing up closer. Moving ahead of Mike Evans seems like not unreasonable, which I will rejoice in because I cannot buy enough Mike Evans still. All right.
Imagine if the Steelers were smart enough to get Chris Godwin. I mean, they might have actually solved their receiver woes if they got him, because he can play multiple positions.
Wait a minute. Are you saying DK Metcalf's not the answer?
No, he's not the answer. He's a good wide receiver
Pickens
too.
Is not the answer.
He's the answer to get my dog to go out in the cold weather, because he's like, I'm not going to be that pussycat. No.
Let's look back at let's look at some values for some rookie running back in current best balls. I think the running backs have been going off the charts, right? They often do these early best balls. People just taking their shots. Ashton Jeanty has risen to running back 4. He's going with the 12th pick overall. Feel it or fuck it.
Someday I am absolutely feeling that. And it could be this year. And since nobody really gives a fuck about off-season drafting, clearly nobody really cares, because they're not really playing.
It costs them money to do this.
It costs them money to do this?
Yeah.
They're paying Josh Norris to draft
Josh Norris.
How much money?
Or best ball pens, whoever.
To get Ashton Jeanty at running back 4? No wonder Josh is flying in jets and smoking cigars, because he's stealing from people. But okay, no, I would say this. The ability is there for him to be running back 4. But without knowing, this is all just fun speculative play, and it's a gamble. Have fun with it. Fuck it, you only live once. This is the Jameis Winston drafters of YOLO balls right here.
I will say I'm not up to a dozen drafts yet, but I do have a single share of Ashton Jeanty, and I had to burn a mid-first round pick to secure those services. And I just want to do it. I went heavy in rookie running backs in that draft as well. I got another one named Omarion Hampton. I'm told he's very good. He's going as running back 17, 51st overall. Feel it or fuck it.
Fuck it. He is a good running back. He's got power. He's got top end speed. He can catch the ball reasonably well. He's got some potential to become a good blocker, though he gets hurt, but like he gets kind of ragdoll around a little bit more often than he should, moved around than he should. As I would say this, that speed gets people excited for his size, but when you look at overall athletic ability, he needs a long runway to get to that speed. He's not,
You're always crushing my dreams, man. Because I love, you know what I like, and here you are.
Listen, just keep looking at Ashton Jeanty. You brought him up. I'm with you all day long. Not only does he have speed, he's got play stamina. That dude, get him. And if you want to take a chance, I'd take Ashton Jeanty at running back 4. Probably before I'd take Omarion Hampton at running back 17, as much as I think Hampton could be decent. But I think he's a B-back in an A-back, B-back situation, and you got some people who are just they're smelling the fumes of the glue, or they got their brain lobotomized by the staple of the centerfold, and they're running back in the Cecil Lammy's running back centerfold journal or whatever it is, And I would just say that's a little pricey for Hampton. Even though it doesn't seem like it compared to Jeanty.
I've seen some analysts be very excited about TreVeyon Henderson. You were not last time we spoke. Are you coming around on him? Feel that or fuck it?
Yeah, I'm coming around on him. I think that he has a place, and that place is the deluxe DeAndre Swift package, which is, compared to Ashton Jeanty, I would say Ashton Jeanty, if he's the standard for knowing how to run a football, I would say that TreVeyon Henderson is probably 2/3 of the way there. But in terms of how they're going to use Henderson, they're going to limit him to ways that he does know how to do that work, and he does it well. He's very fast. He has very good movement. If the play's blocked up right in between the tackles, he's going to get you the yardage. He can catch the ball reasonably well. He's got some things to work on, but teams are going to know what they have in him and use him accordingly, and I'm good with that.
Marcus Yarns, small school, small guy, 4.45. You know where I'm going with this. There seemed to be a lot working against him, right? He does have a good, yards after the first contact, but it's at a lower level of competition. Feel it or fuck it, Bob Harris is totally overlooking this guy. It is a horrible mistake.
I wouldn't say it's a horrible mistake, but I would say it's kind of like how would I best put it? It's kind of like jaywalking on a street on a slow traffic day. It could get you in trouble, but it probably won't. But I will say this to his defense: when I first watched him, he looked like he was Deshaun Jackson playing running back, but he's gained about 15 pounds for the combine. Okay. He's at 193, so that's a very solid weight, and he can catch the ball. He's one of those guys that I look at that if I drafted him in the 6th, maybe I don't have to draft him that late. If I add him as a free agent, we can start on kick return duty and get a really good return man. We could use him as a gadget player, running back or wide receiver, and get rushing yardage on the perimeter. And if he grows into being a good running back, as a change of pace, we might get ourselves a Bucky Irving type of player. Maybe not as sturdy, but faster. Absolutely faster. And if that doesn't work out, we might get a slot receiver. We might get a guy that could turn into a good slot receiver because I like how he catches the ball and how he runs routes. So there's multiple ways that this guy might be able to find his way into fantasy prominence. If you're in a deep league, that's worthwhile. But unless you're in a league where Mike Dempsey is literally online, 25 hours out of 24.
You're only in one of those with him. I'm in a number of those with him. So
you don't need to look at yarns in other than those leagues. Yeah.
All right. So let's say yards, Kamani Vidal, Dylan Lobby, feel one, fuck one, and ignore one.
Yarns, Dylan Lobby, and who was the last one? Kamani Vidal. I would say ignore Yarns. I would say feel Lobby, and I'd say fuck Vidal.
I will continue slandering Vidal until the day I die. Unless he proves me wrong, I'm eager for that.
I still have shares of Vidal, and we'll. But if I had to choose between them, that's probably where I would go.
All right, let's go to the my beloved Arizona Wildcats, Jacory Croskey-Merritt. He had some Aaron Jones in his game. Feel it or fuck it.
Absolutely feel that. Better receiver than you would expect. Can work downfield and win the ball, get position to win the ball in vertical game. He's quick and fast. He's got good acceleration and good speed. His quickness is okay, but he's very creative. He's a good gap runner. He's got some skill as a zone runner. He's someone that can break tackles and set up blocks. He's just had a very curious career coming from Alabama State and then New Mexico and having a good year. And then he tried to go to Ole Miss, or he decided to go to Ole Miss. And then I guess whatever they brought in, he knew he wasn't going to play. So he went to Arizona, where he didn't play very much. But the moments that he played, you look at him and go, that's a pretty good player. So I think there's some growth potential there. He's not as strong of a player Jones was at UTEP, but he's not that far away either.
All right, fair enough. Another Arizona Wildcat while we're on the subject of Tetairoa McMillan. He's wide receiver 26 in best balls right now, going 46th overall. Feel like, how can I phrase this to give you a good, clean tee off? How much do you want to fuck that ADP right now?
Oh, dude, I think because of draft capital, McMillan will get his shot to get a high volume of targets, and that could turn into a wide receiver 26 kind of value. So it's definitely viable. But if he gets a quarterback like, Kyler Murray, then, it could wind up being low-end wide receiver 3 value, especially because while McMillan has, I think, better hands most of the time than Marvin Harrison Jr. does, I think his ability to separate still has some work ahead with his game. It's not awful, but he's more of a T. Higgins type. I'd say fuck it. But it's not as strong with as much emphasis as maybe you thought. Maybe I'm not using the driver to tee off on this as much as I'm using like a 3 wood. I don't know.
Tetairoa McMillan is going, okay, I'll take that 4-year, $115 million T. Higgins money all day long. Also, low-key narrator voice, Matt Waldman's hatred for Kyler Murray should not be overlooked. Let's finish up with this. Tight ends, it seems like, for looking at the last few years, young tight ends have come in and lit some things up, but they're not going especially early. This is supposed to be a great tight end class. Tyler Warren going as tight end 8, round 9. Does that feel like the starting point for the rookie tight ends? Like, even if you don't agree that Warren is the guy, and I think you may not, or maybe you do, don't let me put words in your mouth other than when I really want to. I don't really want to now. Feel it or fuck it. That's about the right spot to dive into the tight end pool.
Honestly, I'd say fuck it. I'd say it's the right spot would be about round 12 to dive into the rookie tight end pool. I just don't, round 12 and after, because you still got quality players in round 8 to 10 who are a little more proven. And even though it's a good tight end class, and I think it is, there's no great tight end on this board in terms of like what we saw with Brock Bowers, or even like, maybe there could be a Sam Laporta situation with Harold Fannin, and then Michael, and then Kyle Pitts. In terms of ability, I would say there's not even a tight end who has that Kyle Pitts like skill just yet. So for me, I would say, okay, Mrs. RSP, hold on for a minute there. She's calling me. But the thing that I would say is that you look at Tyler Warren, and I don't really get the love for him as a Brock Bowers type of prospect, because he's not that fast. He has decent hands. He can go up and win the ball, and he can break tackles, but he's not that. He's more fluid than he is explosive. Brock Bowers is straight up explosive. So Warren to me is more of a Tyler Kraft type of player.
Okay.
And so a good starter eventually, and maybe eventually tight end 8, but not this year. No way.
I think you look in Courtland Loveland is the next tight end going off the board. I want to say
Colson,
Coulson Loveland, like way later. Like I want to say round, like well into double digits, around the price you said. I think it
and Loveland, I would take at that point.
Colson Loveland going at tight end 12 and 129th pick overall. So you're looking at what, round 12? Round 12, 11, 12.
Yeah, I'll take that.
All right,
I'll take that. I would take that over Warren every day.
All right. There, we figured something out, and I think we both agree. Let's agree on something else. You want to give away more RSPs. What are we going to do?
Yeah, what are we going to do? Okay.
I'm not going to be here next week. Do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And what is it you're going to do? Give the people a notice.
All right. Well, I think I just gave people a look at my preliminary quarterback rankings just now, as I pulled that up on my screen as we're recording quite by accident. But that's going to be changing because I'm looking at all that. But let's see. Let's do this. I'm going to give you a hint of who I think is one of the running backs that I think has slipped through the cracks, who no one's talking about, that I've ranked in my top 15. And I'm going to give you some hints about this player. So if you're the first 2 people to mention this player by name, this running back, then I will give away free RSPs. I would say that I'm comparing him based on his size. He is somewhere in the range of guys like Devonta Freeman, Javonte Williams, D'Angelo Williams, kind of in height and weight. He's in that range. He's played in the South because that's where all good football players play. He is someone who last year routinely outran SEC cornerbacks and defensive backs in the speed department, and he was the MVP of a certain All-Star game this year. That was also there was also another running back I liked, who plays for a certain team in Wisconsin, who also won the MVP of that All-Star game. So, automatically that correlates that if this cheesehead won the MVP of this All-Star game, and the guy I'm talking about here won the MVP this year of that All-Star game, then obviously he's going to be good, even if he doesn't get a ton of looks. But yes, I think this running back, who's the D'Angelo Williams size, Devonta Freeman, Javonte Williams, kind of in that range of size, and those are guys I'm comparing him to along a spectrum. If he won this MVP of this All-Star game, maybe you should pay attention to him a little bit. And Hugo doesn't like him because he can't tackle him. He can't tackle him. So that's why he's mad. So yeah, be the first 2 to guess that, and get you RSPs, and we'll wish Bob a bon voyage, and
tell them where to send the entries, please, Matt Waldman.
Yes, you can send them to Matt Waldman you can send them to Matt Waldman RSP at gmail.com. And I won't be able to answer everybody's entries. I'm finishing up the RSP, but I will announce the winners next week. And we will tell Bob. I will probably send Bob an early copy of the RSP before he goes on vacation, so he can at least have it as a flotation device in case things don't go right at the airports. But I think that we're going to be okay. We're going to wish them well. I think they're going to have that stuff figured out. We'll be all right.
I'm hoping so. All right, everybody. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Matt will see you next week. There will be a rookie scouting portfolio next week. Go to mattwaldman.com. Order it now. That's because I said so. Or because you want one. Have one. Yeah. All right, everybody. Love you. Goodbye.
Love you. Bye.